Clarity Act Doomsday is up on us. Today we're going to be breaking that down, where the bullish side is and where the bearish side is. You don't want to miss it. Let's just jump right in. I do want to thank our sponsor, and that is Tangem, where you can get into self-custody. And this is one of the things I recommend that you put on your checklist to do if you're in crypto, or even if you're brand new to crypto. Jump over to tangem.com. It's very easy to use and set up. Works like a credit card with your phone, and you can get access and the capability of holding all your digital assets right there in a physical hard wallet. So check it out. Use our link down below. It's going to give you a little bit of a discount. All right, before we bring our guest in today, which is going to be a good one around the possibility of Clarity getting through or not, I wanted to go to the poly market odds right here. And as you can see on the 6 hour, we have seen some pretty big dips all the way down to 36% and now holding at around 46, 47% on the possibility of the Clarity Act signing into law in 2026. The problem is that this is considerably down if you look at this over time. When you look at it over time, we've had high percentages up as high as 82%. We are half of that, guys, almost. And this is the concern right now I have as to whether or not it is occurring. Couple of points I want to hit on right here is the Bitcoin conference, which may be indicative of what the market is doing. There was a lot of events out there that were not necessarily showing a lot of people coming. So this is an issue. It's an indication, I think, that the bubble, I don't know that I would say the bubble is popped, but definitely the bear market is here. And of course, the bear market is going to be let out by one significant thing. And that is going to be legislation. And the legislation that we're talking about, of course, is the Clarity Act. I want to go to a clip by Senator Lummis talking about that at the event. Take a look.
We are going to mark up the Clarity Act in May. We are going to get it to the finish line with a lot of time and a lot of patience. And I'm running out of both. Traditional banking opposing the Clarity Act because they didn't like the Genius Act. So we're having to relitigate the Genius Act while we move forward. Ethics is another issue that we've encountered. That one we're bringing to a close.
What can people do to help? How are we going to get it done?
Don't let them get away with, are you allowed to say bullshit arguments on stage that are totally false flags?
Our government appears incapable of getting anything done. My name's Paul Graywall, and I am the Chief Legal Officer at Coinbase. New legislation promises hope and indeed clarity, but the builders, the ones making this all possible, are skeptical, weary, scared, and frankly angry.
All right, so you see some of the biggest players out there in the industry, both from the legislative branch, but also in the sense that we're seeing the industry, the leaders of the crypto industry that are concerned about. We wanted to get one of the people who maybe looks at this in a different way, especially around the positive side of that, and that is Kevin Wysocki, who is the head of policy over at Anchorage Digital. How are you, Kevin?
I'm doing well, Paul. Thanks for having me.
All right, so I looked at your tweet here, and I'm kind of on the other side of this, but I wanted you to kind of give us a framework of what you were mentioning here. I'm growing more and more bullish on the prospects of a market structure passing in 2026. This, of course, was back in March, but are you still in that sense right now, is that you're bullish on this position?
Definitely. We've already had the House pass this bill last year, right? We had about a third of the Democrats then and all the Republicans support it. The bill is roughly 90% similar to the Senate version of the bill. It's natural for ebbs and flows in the legislative process. There's a lot going on right now. Whether you're talking about world events, economic events, and members are still focused on this in the Senate Banking Committee. The Ag Committee in the Senate has already passed this. And there are really like two major issues that they need to iron out, and I think they're making progress on both of them.
So I look at what Senator Lummis, who has been one of the most outspoken congresspeople on this issue, and I think really it's kind of put almost her career stamp on the line. If this does not go through, is this going to be looking really bad for her?
No. I think she's done so much already as a senator. She's had a number of accomplishments. Obviously, in the crypto sphere, she was instrumental in helping getting the Genius Act passed last year, and that's another kind of positive thing I actually think for market structure. Genius was a huge unlock, right? The fact that was passed in a bipartisan way by Congress and the president signed it, we've now onshored a number of companies back to the United States, whether it's Tether with Anchorage Digital and issuing that stablecoin. We've done that with Athena Labs. I think what market structure really enables is for TradFi to get into this space. It enables more investment from international players to come to the United States. So I think that it's going to lead to a lot of innovation, a lot of jobs, and I think everyone on the left and the right understands that. And you've really seen that actually with the amount of support over the last 3 years that's really grown among Democrats. I would say previously, maybe the second or third year of the Biden administration, you didn't see a lot of Democrats that were willing to stick their neck out for crypto policies or pro-crypto policies, and that changed. You saw that with the SAB 121 vote in the Senate. About 20% of the senators voted for that, the Democratic senators, that is. And then also in the House, you had market structure pass in the last year of the Biden administration. Trump comes in, right? Obviously, the agencies have done a number of things. We get Genius across the finish line, and that momentum is going to continue to carry. I think right now we're at a little bit of a standstill, but in May we're likely, like Lummis said in that video, to have a vote at the Senate Banking Committee level. That still gives us June to pass it at the full Senate level, and then in July we can pass it in the House, and the president can sign it before the August recess.
All right, Kevin. So to your point, I guess the status, and you hit on some deadlines here, and we'll get to that in a second because there are some key times here that we need to kind of break down. But in terms of Clarity's status right now, what would you say is the key thing holding it back from moving forward somewhat unanimously?
I think for the Senate Banking Committee markup in May, they need to get to an agreement on stablecoin yield. Senator Tillis and Senator Alsobrook, along with the White House and a couple other key members, have been working on that agreement. They've been close for a while, but they're fine-tuning that. I think they're going to get it across the finish line soon. And the reason for that is I believe the banks, if they really want to have rewards changed so that they are more limited, the last train leaving the station is this market structure bill before Genius goes into effect of January 2027. So I think there's a strong incentive to come to an agreement on stablecoin yield before that. So ironically, I think the banks are very helpful here on market structure legislation. I know it's not talked about in that way, but I think that's actually true. So that's to get it to the Senate Banking Committee. I don't know that we're going to get a bipartisan vote on that. We still might get a partisan vote on that based on the fact that we still need to do a little bit of work on the ethics policies. And that's something that the Democrats have said that they wanted, and now Senator Tillis has said recently that he wants as well. My understanding is at the committee level that can't be resolved, but before there's a full committee vote, it would need to be resolved, or excuse me, a full Senate vote, it would need to be resolved. And I think there's a lot of possibilities there. I don't know exactly what will get enough Republicans and Democrats on board, but there are things like CFTC commissioners. Right now, there are no Democrat CFTC commissioners. Right. We can compromise on that. Maybe there are some marketing restrictions on how you can go about marketing particular coins if you are a policymaker. Maybe there's a timeline, right, that can be adjusted on like when this would go to an effect. So there are a lot of levers to pull there. I don't know which ones will be pulled. I don't know which ones necessarily like the White House is looking at or what like Senate Dems really want. But I think there's room for an agreement there. And I think the reason for that is enough people have bought into crypto, whether you're on the left or the right. You understand if you tokenize, whether it's stocks or bonds or stable coins tokenizing the dollar, it's an improved financial plumbing for our the American financial system. It helps with dollar dominance. It can make settlement atomic, so instantaneous. It can make it more affordable. You can have better national security. So honestly, whether you're on the left or the right, I don't know why you wouldn't support this market structure legislation.
I do agree with that. What I don't agree with is that the banks are even remotely assisting on this. I think in many cases they put more and more roadblocks, doubled down on roadblocks, and then added roadblocks behind the roadblocks. So that's a concern I still have today. That kind of leans me to the poly market, which is less than 50% odds now, which is much lower than what I originally had after I'd seen a lot of the antics that the banks have done. And especially when you look at the two reports that came out, one that came out of the White House, then the pushback report from the ABA, we have continued to see that. Now, granted, I think stablecoin yields may be a foregone conclusion now, in the sense that there may be something in terms of a compromise between the industry and the banks. We'll see how it goes, because they haven't shown us the markup language, and they're not going to, from what I understand. The other thing that I think is going to be the biggest issue is the ethics red line, which is the one that even when I had Warren Davis on, I don't know, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks ago, Mr. Davidson said that very same thing, is that the ethics issue is most likely going to be one of the big issues facing this going forward. If that is the case, the ethics red line, what could be a possible compromise on the ethics? Is there anything that you've heard on the street or in DC that might indicate that this might be somewhat resolved?
There's a lot of speculation as to how that could be resolved. It could be something with CFTC commissioners making sure Democrats get some Democrat commissioners soon. It could be with marketing restrictions. There are a handful of things being thrown out. I don't know exactly what could be decided upon, but I think really though, like one of the things you said about like the banks, right? Like there was this letter that came out urging a delay or more time and extension on like some of the comment for the implementation of Genius. You know what? Crypto actually asked for the exact same thing when that the comment letter, when the NPR from the OCC first came out, right? So it's actually in line with what crypto originally had asked for. I get that it's a tactic, obviously, to try to slow things down. But at the same time, it's not different from what crypto had asked for. And I ultimately don't think it's going to have any teeth, in the sense that it's not, I think the OCC and the other regulators are going to stay with the timelines that they've already put in place. At most, maybe with the OCC, you'll get a 15-day extension. But I think no extension is most likely. So I don't think that tactic is going to be successful. And there are a lot of things that are done in Washington that don't really accomplish a lot. So yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I don't, with the tactics that are coming out of the ABA and most of the banking side of it, we've just seen so much that have been very strategic to kind of push this thing along, which really to me gets us into a very high risk proposal on not getting this done before the summer break. And to your point, that could be a big deal. Now the ethics issue, Thom Tillis was on Twitter just yesterday talking about this very issue, is that he felt that this has got to be resolved. You look at some of the things that could happen on the World Liberty Fi issue, because that's most likely going to be the one here. First of all, the World Liberty Fi they're doing a token unlock proposal, which would be a possible track to possibly maybe aligning against this. My question to you is, do you think that the removal, because if you go over and look at just the Trump website on World Liberty Fi, this has been kind of the scenario that has happened where they had it, all the Trumps on there, then all of that was removed. I just wonder, was this being done? Maybe there's a backroom deal that's already been solidified around the ethics issue, saying that, to your point, marketing has to be dropped. You have to go out and pull your representation, all those kind of things. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I just, honestly, from my time working on policy and crypto, what I've experienced is just a dramatic increase in support among Democrats and Republicans for crypto policies. I remember when I was
Tom, sorry to cut you off, but do you think Thom Tillis could stop this?
I think honestly he's going to get to yes on this legislation, right? There are two different key votes, right? So you have the Senate Banking Committee vote. He's been pretty adamant about stablecoin yield there. I don't know that it's, and this is what I've seen. I don't think the Democrats have said that they would not. Excuse me. I think we can get a passing vote in the Senate Banking Committee without ethics language, and I think that will likely be in May. I think from May to June, right, sometime in June, you'd like to have the full Senate vote on that. You buy yourself time if you pass the Senate Banking Committee in May, and then continue to work on that issue. And that's similar to what happened in the Agriculture Committee. They all said, all the Democrats said, we've been working really closely with the Republicans. This bill is terrific. All these things. Unfortunately, we can't vote for it today, but we support this legislation. I think you might get something similar in May, and then you're going to work until June to pass it in the full Senate.
All right, so I'm looking at a statement from the Republican Senator Thom Tillis, and it says there has to be ethics language in the bill before it leaves the Senate, or I will go from one of the people working on negotiating it to voting against it. This is coming out of Politico. So he seems to put the line in the sand right now that this is going to be an issue.
Yeah, and it's consistent with what I'm saying. What I'm saying with the timeline. In May, at the committee level, you can still pass it, and then you get it through the committee, and you continue to work in a bipartisan way to come to a resolution on the ethics issues.
All right, good enough. Okay, so let's take a look at. I want to go to the Patrick Witt clip real quick, because this is another thing that I'm kind of curious about. What if it doesn't pass? I want you to take a look at this real quick. Here we go.
Well, obviously here at the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas, intense focus on Bitcoin as an asset overall. The president signed the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Executive Order last year. So in the next few weeks, we'll be making a big announcement. I think we have a bit of a breakthrough there. And obviously that needs to be followed up with legislation. Senator Lummis' Bitcoin Act over in the House. Representative Begich has talked about the ARMA Act that he has put together. So we need to codify it, but in the meantime, we do believe we're going to be able to take a big step forward from the executive branch side in the next few weeks.
That's huge news. So,
all right, so this was broke just today out of the Bitcoin conference, talking about this strategic reserve possibly in the next few weeks. My question is, do you think that Patrick Witt is laying the groundwork for giving the industry something because Clarity may not make it through, and this would be another alternative to kind of appease the industry as a whole? What are your thoughts?
No, I think they're mutually exclusive. I think you can get both. Obviously, we had the executive order. The administration has been working over roughly the last year to make the strategic Bitcoin reserve and also the crypto stockpile a reality. I think we can get those, and we can get market structure legislation. I think both are very bullish, obviously, for this industry. But again, also kind of point to the fact that like crypto has really arrived. When I was a staffer for Tom Emmer, I remember going to some of the initial meetings for the blockchain caucus in the House, and there were like 3 other members that would show up. We were just starting to learn the basics about Bitcoin, and that was roughly 10 years ago now. Now we're passing major legislation. Now we're having major rulemaking at the SEC, CFTC, OCC. Now we have a Fed chairman, or likely to have a Fed chairman that knows the technology, right? These are huge changes and welcome developments. And I think we're going to, yeah.
I would agree. All those very, very positive for sure. And you're lining up a lot of the things that have to be in place, with the exception of one, which is the Clarity Act. And if this doesn't go through, essentially we're putting it in the hands of most likely a Democratic House and Senate. What would be the possibility, if this does not go through in the summer, of this even being put into action after the midterms?
Well, I think the nice thing is that the agencies have led so much on many of these things, right? A lot of what we're trying to achieve in market structure can be accomplished through agency action. Some of it we've already seen, whether it's like tokenization of securities, things like that. I view this approach as almost like the agencies are the belt, the legislation is the suspenders, right? It's better to have both, but you can do a lot. And yes, the next Congress might be challenging to move market structure legislation, but we don't know what the next presidential and next Congress after that will look like.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily count out this next Congress either. For all the reasons that we've already talked about, the merits of crypto, I think it makes a lot of sense to get a federal regulatory umbrella for the crypto industry, whether you want consumer protections, national security, onshoring, all those things are more likely to happen with federal legislation.
Do you guys have a line on how many Democrats we would need as an industry to get this through before the break?
Yeah, so the numbers are roughly, I think last time on Genius in the Senate, you had 2 Republicans that didn't vote for that bill, and the rest did. So I think you're going to need probably somewhere between 9 and 11 Democrats to come on board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I want to see how we pull that one off, because I'm just not seeing that kind of support, at least right now, based on what I'm hearing. Again, a lot of this will be boiling down to many of the negotiations that are either have already taken place or are taking place around yield. But more importantly, I think the red line is going to be in this ethics side of things real quick. I want to play another component because actually I want to go to this clip real quick, because this is a good one from Perianne. Let's go to that one.
There is a list of tokens that the SEC clearly stated are digital commodities. What we've seen is the market has reacted to that, and now those tokens are trading at a premium, particularly in Asian markets. What comments do you have for market participants about getting additional clarity and just addressing the list?
We gave a lot of examples, and these are all illustrations. It wasn't meant to be, like a firm or immutable sort of list.
All right, so that was Atkins and Perianne Boring talking about the potential of market expansion, meaning the market's going to go up if we do get clarity aligned. I mean, do you feel that that is the case right now? Do you think the market will respond kindly to this?
Yeah, I think it would be really positive news. Again, though, there's already been so much positive news. We do have the agency approach, which has been helpful. But yeah, I think it would really make it clear that the agencies have authorizations to do all the things that they're doing. It would mean that they're more permanent. It would be harder to undo in the future. And it's very meaningful to have like demonstrated bipartisan support in the House and Senate going forward. The other thing I would say is, I think too, like we've seen a maturation at the kind of like presidential level of where crypto stands. I would say in the last race, like obviously Trump was very pro crypto. I think the future candidates, whether on the left or the right, are more likely to be pro crypto. So that's another reason for a kind of a bullish like outlook on all of this. Even if market structure doesn't get across the finish line, I think we're going to see a lot more policymakers over the coming years that are pro crypto. It's hard to fathom a world in which they can't say yes to faster, safer payments, to a stronger dollar, right? All these different things. So either way, regardless of what happens in the short term, even though I still think we're likely to get it before the August recess, I still think there are many reasons to be very positive about the outlook of the regulatory environment for crypto for years to come in DC.
All right, I like, first of all, the fact that you're so bullish is amazing because I like it, but I'm just not there yet. I think the issue still is faced with, at least right now with what's going on with the Trump administration and crypto, that it really puts a bit of a damper on this being able to get through just because of this red line that I think Tillis is drawing out. And he's not the first. I mean, it's been, Davidson had already talked about this. It's been thrown around DC quite a bit. So they're either clearing something to get ready for, and it's possible that World Liberty Fi is making a lot of these moves. We've seen deleted tweets, a website restructure completely, now a token burn, all kinds of proposals out there to maybe accommodate for this. So I am concerned. I want to go over to this last point real quick, which is where the SEC lands on this. And you see this right here from Plume talking about the SEC formalizing the situation around DeFi rules. If the SEC locks this in and they get it done, first of all, could this be future-proofed against new administrations that may not be as crypto-friendly? Or would they be able to simply tear down all the policy, because this is more policy than it is law right now of what the SEC is doing? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the longer it's in effect and the more companies are leaning on it for their businesses, it's harder to entirely
Take
rip
it
it
down.
out. I
Yeah.
see changes. I think you're going to see future policymakers, whether on the left and the right, be more pro crypto. So I think that's bullish for all of this.
Why hasn't it happened already? Why
I think
haven't we
it,
seen? Well,
I
then why
think it
would we
ha-
need 9 Democrats to pass this?
Well, I think these things are complicated. We got to make sure we get them right. And the fact is, in the House just a year ago, without ethics language, you got the Clarity Act to pass with over a third of them supporting it, right? And they had similar concerns, but they still voted for it.
Yeah.
Then, what has changed? A few things have
Well, a
changed.
lot has changed. A lot has changed. World Liberty Fi has changed. Melania token. We've seen all sorts of activities coming out of the administration that I think has put crypto in a bad position strategically to get this through DC, because of the political temperature that is in DC right now.
But we've also seen increased business like use cases for crypto, right?
100%.
Stable have gone up like 100 million in or excuse me, 100 billion in circulation. Tokenization is really taking off. You see TradFi companies announcing crypto projects all the time. This is becoming mainstream. In fact, like the banks, even though they're often opposed to yield, they themselves are launching a number of stablecoin products, or they want to issue themselves. Everyone knows this is the future. So overriding all the politics is, I think, like the products worked and they're better for the American people.
Okay. Let's talk about crypto taxes for a second. You've got this statement right here from Chair Jason Smith saying crypto tax package coming very soon. They're at the 1 yard line right now on the tax bill. Do you think that has a possibility of needing clarity, or do you think this is a completely separate scenario that's going to play out?
Yeah, completely separate. And I would say that taxes are a harder lift than clarity right now.
Okay.
You probably have to find pay for us for that. I think the committees of jurisdiction are like, so the Ways and Means and the Senate Finance Committee are getting more comfortable with digital assets, whereas the committees of jurisdiction for market structure, whether it's ag, whether it's financial services, whether it's banking, they're much more in tune with what's going on in the industry already. So I think the tax stuff is going to be a little bit slower to arrive, and I think market structure hopefully will happen before.
Okay. All right, so a lot depends on these PACs that are in DC that kind of dictate where this money is being spent to help promote these events. I'm looking at one of your tweets right here. You guys put some corporate resources around the Blockchain Leadership Fund. So with that, is this essentially just Fairshake rebranding, or is this a completely new entity? Tell me about this.
Completely new. The idea is to push for a pro crypto policy. It doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right. We want good outcomes on pro crypto policy. So
Okay.
that obviously means supporting the Clarity Act, but it means, like what you just pointed out with tax policy, we need some enhancements there. And I'm sure there are going to be other things that come up in the future. Maybe we'll see a tokenization bill down the road. All those different things, we want to see really good policy outcomes on those. And I think the PACs are a useful tool to be able to network with folks, to talk with people, and to continue to push for good policy.
Kevin, I'm looking at something that to me is a horror story about ready to happen because we've lived through this before, and that is Gary Gensler making it very clear that he does not like this prediction market thing. So he's hovering around, still making statements here, and he basically says that Congress didn't have this in mind when they dictated this out to the CFTC. If he's joining kind of an anti-prediction army out there right now, statements like this, what's the possibility of having another, bureaucrat, legislator, or I shouldn't say legislator, bureaucrat and rulemaker essence like him back in these administrations?
I would like to think that you're going to have, going forward, really pro innovation, leaders, regardless of which administration it is. I think if you look at some of the front runners that are out there for the next presidential, whether it's a governor from California or the vice president or the secretary of state, I think they've all had said some pretty favorable things about crypto in the past. They might not be perfect, but I think we're going to be in a world in the future where it's more obvious to everyone in these administrations that they need to be on the side of innovation, and they're going to help push things along. Some obviously might not be as pro, say, crypto as others, but I think we're going to leave that era behind, and going forward, it's going to be very positive for our industry.
Well, Kevin, I hope you're right, because the things that we are seeing, all the research, we continue to see side speak happening, meaning they go one way and then they talk out over on this side. They tell us one thing, they go this way. I mean, you even had Gensler, this is in January of 25, when he was pro-Kalshi, and now all of a sudden he's out there putting out stuff like this. This is the kind of problem that I think American businesses, we won't even talk about crypto, I'm just business in general, have with the administrations that we have seen in DC continuously putting more regulatory frameworks around us. And now with crypto, we're getting to see this front and center. So I'm still very, very skeptical as this gets through. Just too many big players putting too many big potholes in the way. But maybe you have risen my positivity up 1% today. So as I say, 1% better every day is better than going backwards, right?
Definitely.
All right, listen, it's been good having you on. Thanks for coming in today. We do appreciate it. We're going to cover this and much more. Good luck to you guys over at Anchorage Digital.
Thank you, Paul. Have a good one.
If you like this video, hit like and subscribe, drop a comment down below, and also join our free private member group. The link is in the description.